when you're ready.
Stem cell therapy is an exciting medical development, but many treatments are still unproven. It's important to look through an ethical, a political, a scientific, and religious lens to understand both the potential benefits and also the many challenges patients and the society face. Their job is to restore, replace, and regenerate damaged tissues and organs. They're meant to restore function, treat chronic diseases, and also advance medical research.
Dozens of studies have been conducted using stem cell therapies over the past decade, and results show minimal or insignificant effects of these therapies on various conditions and injuries. In one study analyzing the effectiveness of stem cell therapies on diabetes, they proved to be minimally effective in treating insulin levels, and many patients experienced side effects like nausea. A different study on stem cell therapies and neurodegenerative diseases like multiple sclerosis and Alzheimer's concludes that stem cell therapies could help improve motor functions. However, this conclusion holds little weight due to the long observation period and many patients experiencing no change. Another report synthesizing these therapies' effectiveness on burn wounds in animals, mostly rats, maintains that stem cell therapies have anti-inflammatory properties on milder wounds. This evidence suggests that stem cell therapies do not have significant effectiveness on burns and other diseases and injuries to be meaningfully implemented in human medicine currently.
When looking at stem cell therapies through an ethical perspective, it is hard to see them as effective because of the ethical lines that they cross. Although stem cell therapies help treat many diseases such as Parkinson's disease, it is hard to see them as effective because of the use of embryos. By using reprogrammed adult cells, this can be a more safer and ethical alternative to this problem. Different religions play a main role in this ethical debate because they help define when life begins and whether the use of embryos can be justified. For example, Catholicism believes that the use of embryos cannot be justified in stem cell therapies because it is destroying a human life. According to research by Volveric and others, using new technology such as iPSCs, induced pluripotent stem cells, can be an ethical and more safer alternative while also producing the same cells that HESCs, human embryonic stem cells, produce as well. Also, as Ruby talked about in the scientific lens, there are still many negative side effects from it, such as effects in the immune system. This may be because unregulated clinics have been skipping proper testing needed to ensure patient safety. This scientific uncertainty raises ethical concern about whether it is right to offer stem cell therapies, which are potentially unproven and unsafe. Researchers have a lot of responsibility in valuing the patient's safety while also valuing the patient's beliefs.
According to Kyla Dunn, in 2001, President Bush restricted federal funding for stem cell research to just 22 existing embryonic stem cell lines. This limitation slowed research and discouraged many scientists from entering the field, since working in stem cell research had become politically risky. Later, in 2010, a U.S. court temporarily blocked federal funding, leaving laboratories uncertain about whether ongoing projects could continue. According to Suzanne Oki, while ethical and religious debates influence public opinion and shaped law, states like California stepped in to fill funding gaps. Proposition 71, for example, provided support for stem cell research even when federal policies blocked it, allowing some progress even though research remained uneven. Overall, these political and historical decisions continue to affect which stem cell therapies are available and how quickly new treatments can be developed.
Stem cell therapy is still pretty experimental and doesn't always work for everyone, which makes a lot of people, especially those with more strong religious beliefs, question it is really worth it. For example, Harvard Stem Cell Institute shares that the Catholic Church doesn't support embryonic stem cell research because it destroys the embryos. The Islam tradition shows that what's called ensoulment, which happens at 120 days, will allow it. Judaism and Buddhism have more mixed opinions on the matter. Since these treatments aren't guaranteed to work and bring up a lot of issues, many people think that destroying embryos just isn't right. Scientists now have alternative options such as iPS cells, which function similarly to embryonic stem cells but don't require the destruction of embryos. That makes them safer and more accepted by different religions. Overall, science should continue to move forward, but should also respect people's beliefs and focus on more ethical alternatives that can help without crossing religious boundaries.
Some people argue that stem cell therapies are effective because of scientific progress, successful experiments, and state programs that have helped research continue despite federal limits. But political issues like funding, legal restrictions, and limited stem cell types still slow progress. Stem cells can treat diseases, but most treatments remain experimental, costly, and sometimes unsafe. Many scientists now use existing cell lines to avoid moral issues, but ethical debates still continue. And although stem cells show some promise medically, long-term, reliable treatments don't exist yet. So overall, while stem cell therapy has great potential, it's still developing, and until these challenges are resolved, stem cell therapy is not fully effective.
Through analyzing each lens, we see how different perspectives build on each other to explain why stem cell therapies are only partially effective. Moral concerns using embryos impacts laws and funding, and this lack of funding means many studies are cut short. They could benefit from longer windows of observation and more resources. These political restrictions limit research opportunities and ultimately slow scientific progress, which feeds back into the uncertainty and ethical debates surrounding stem cells. Although stem cell therapies are promising now, they are not yet effective due to these moral, ethical, scientific, and religious factors. With better funding, constructive debate, and ethical alternatives like iPSCs, medical research can advance without destroying embryos or violating moral and religious beliefs.
Ruby, give one specific way your thinking changed as a result of learning about Brynn's finding.
Well, initially, I had never considered like the impact or the implications of using like embryonic stem cells in stem cell therapies, and especially now, like given what I've found about like the ineffectiveness of stem cell therapies, it just doesn't seem worth it to maybe be using embryonic stem cells as much. I feel like definitely like better alternatives could be found.
Okay, thank you. Brynn, reflecting on your colleagues' work, which one had the greatest impact on your overall understanding of the problem that the group identified?
What makes me think differently about my...
Yeah, which one had the greatest impact on your overall understanding?
I think the one that had the greatest impact on my overall understanding of my ethical lens was probably Hannah's and the religious lens, because it made me think about how much religion shapes public opinion and policy. Science doesn't exist in isolation from moral beliefs. When listening to Hannah talk about like how people have different beliefs about whether the use of embryos can be justified or the use of embryos cannot be justified, I think it's important to get both of those sides while also getting the side of people that don't really have an opinion about whether the use of embryos is important in stem cell therapies, because there are many different alternatives, such as what I talked about, the iPSCs, to help advance in the future.
Okay, thank you. Luella, describe an argument from one of your peers' individual reports that made you think differently about your team's conclusion.
An argument from Brynn's ethical lens made me think differently about our conclusion because she explained how finding alternatives like iPS cells could help avoid moral conflicts while still allowing scientific progress. And this made me realize that our solution should focus on promoting research that respects all the different religious and moral beliefs.
Okay, thank you. And Hannah, if you had another team member, if you could have a fifth team member, what other perspective or limitations could they have researched that would have made a useful contribution to your work?
I think the economic lens would have been really helpful to our slides because it could help explore how expensive stem cell treatments are and how cost effective, who can access them, and which connects closely to my social and cultural lens.
Okay, thank you. A round of applause.